should a founding father be like? In the next few minutes, I will share with you the story of one of the most greatest men of all times. George Washington was a man of exceptional virtue and character, the perfect father of a nation. I will cite information from Columbia University and the University of Virginia and other quotes from our founding fathers that talk about George Washington to illustrate the great man that he was. His early years helped to shape the man that he would later become and give him the necessary traits that he needed. Washington was born in Wakefield, Virginia, on February 22, 1732. He was born to a mildly prosperous family and was privately educated to the age of 15. His family was not wealthy and could not afford a university education for him, so he took up the trade of surveying. Washington began learning gentlemanly ways as a teenager. My favorite book was The 110 Rules of Civility and Decent Behavior. He wrote them over and over so that he could commit them to memory. He joined the military and fought with the British against the French in the French and Indian War. His bravery and his ability on the battlefield were legendary. Then he went home. He served in the legislature for 2 years, or for 2 terms. Then hostilities broke out in Massachusetts, and the Second Continental Congress appointed Washington the commander of all the colonial forces. He would accept no pay for his services. At the end of the Revolutionary War, there was a movement in his army to make him king, which he humbly declined. At the Constitutional Convention of 1787, he was unanimously elected the first president of the United States by the Electoral College. He was the only one to ever be unanimously elected. If you were going to pick a founding father and the father of a future superpower, what qualities would you look for? Most people agree that virtue, character, humility, and honor would be the most important qualities in a leader of this stature. Washington demonstrated these qualities more than any man I have ever heard or read about. It was not in the Bible. Recently, the Richmond Times and Dispatch did a survey of historians to find the greatest Virginian of all times. The resounding winner was George Washington. The writers of the study came to this conclusion. Students of the period cannot imagine that any other American could have held the young nation's army together during such hard times. No other general could have saved it from the destruction and the battles that went against us. No other man could have withstood the criticisms from Congress. No other soldier could have Washington's combination of boldness and prudence. No one could have managed the whole affair half as well as the Lion of Mount Vernon did. Greatness is one thing, but humility is another. Here's a story that illustrates Washington's humble side. There's a story about Washington and General Lafayette standing together one day, and a slave passed by and tipped his hat and said, "Good morning, General Washington." And Washington said, "Good morning to you, sir," and tipped his hat. General Lafayette was truly shocked, and he said, "And how could you do this to a slave, acknowledge a slave this way?" General Washington said, he smiled, and he said that today he couldn't let him be a better gentleman than him. And that just demonstrates just the humility. Only in that period that was unheard of. Thomas Jefferson, who worked with Washington for many years, said, "On whole, his character was, in mass, perfect. Nothing bad, in no points, in a few points indifferent. It may truly be said that never did nature or fortune combine more perfectly to make a man great." In conclusion, I'd like to say that the United States has values and ideals that no other nation in history can compare to. We are not perfect, but we strive for liberty and justice for all. Our government is balanced and as transparent as at all possible. We are truly a great nation. This time, we're going through hard times, and it's as important as any that we look to the values that Washington illustrated And I believe he was ordained by God to get this country off to the right start. It's summed up by Gerald Bayless from the University of Virginia. Most importantly, Washington's presidential restraint, his solidness, his judiciousness, and his nonpartisan stance created an image of the presidential greatness and dignity that dominates the office even today. He was the man who could have been a king, but he refused a crown to save the republic. God bless America.
Woo!